Hello everyone. I'm activating also my video. I'm gonna talk more about like the experience of UNICEF in using drones to deliver medical supplies. As you know, one of our biggest challenges, we have to reach out to every child, and we know that more or less like 1 billion people live 2 or more kilometers away from an accessible road, and then you get also these roads wash up in rainy seasons. So with 50% of more of the children relying on UNICEF vaccines, delivery is very important and is very relevant. And we still have like 20 million children who do not receive all their vaccinations, mainly because they live in these remote areas. So we came up with a use case in Vanuatu, which is a country in the Southern Pacific, and where it is very relevant to use drones because of its geography, an archipelago form of 80 small islands. Most of the islands don't have a road, or the roads that are there are in a bad condition. So deliveries are always a challenge. So as you can see in this picture, there's a nurse, a health worker there trying with a bag of vaccines. He's trying to deliver these vaccines, and he usually walks for 4 to 5 hours to get these vaccines to the health posts. But by that time, usually half of the vaccines go bad. And so we asked how could we better or improve the situation and maximize, minimize the time that the vaccines are on the road and maximize the number of children that are vaccinated. Because right now, and they're having like some progress, Vanuatu have seen like progress in the last 8 years in terms of immunization, but still in 2016, this last vaccination survey had like around 20% of the children unimmunized. So, and let me just like explain a little bit how the immunization works in Vanuatu. Mostly immunizations are delivered in fixed clinics or in outreach sessions in small clinics near where the communities live. But most of the vaccines are administered in these small clinics. So you have to deliver the vaccines from the distribution centers in these 133 facilities, these big facilities, into these small facilities, and that's a big challenge in the country. Here you can see how expensive it is to reach each children in Vanuatu and why drones make sense. Here are some of the operational costs to reach every child. So for example, you'll see in the areas that are more far away from the province from the distribution centers, you have like operational cost of reaching every child of almost $40, which makes a lot of sense to look into other modes of transportation. And from that operational cost, 72% is transport, and 20% is the DSA for nurses who have to actually travel all the way during these 5 hours to get to these places. So this challenge, this project was designed with the objectives to see if drones would be like technically feasible to integrate them into the existing supply chain without creating additional infrastructure. We wanted to use what is already existing to be able to use drones to deliver vaccines. If the technology was accepted by local communities, and like if we could do it safely, and basically involve Civil Aviation Administration of Vanuatu and other stakeholders to see how could we integrate the use of drones safely. For this was a project between UNICEF, the government of Vanuatu, Global Fund, Australian government, and the project was designed in 3 phases. I'm going to talk very briefly about phase 2, which was during a course of 9 weeks. 2 contractors delivered vaccines and other medical supplies to the islands of Pentecost, Epi, Eromango, and the islands of Shepherd. Phase 1 was around like testing the technology. Phase 2 was actually delivering vaccines, real vaccines to children. And then phase 3, which is a phase that is still in design process, is the integration of drones into the health supply chain at a national level in the country. So two companies work with UNICEF and with the government of Vanuatu to deliver vaccines. Both of them use these vertical takeoff landing drones that Patrick showed in his presentation. And they approach the problem differently. This first company, Super Aero, used to land the drone at the delivery site. And so as you can see in the pictures, the nurses were able to retrieve the box with the vaccines and with the medical supplies from the drone. They just had to push a button. And then when they were done with the drone, they closed that compartment and then push the button again so the drone can automatically fly back to the distribution center. So this kind of delivery created a lot of engagement with the health workers because they were actually the ones who were retrieving the boxes and actually also sending back the drones, and allowed for a very important mode of delivery, which is two-way delivery. So sometimes from the distribution centers send the vaccines, but then from these health outposts in these districts, they send back, for example, other medicines that would be required in other areas. So this allowed for a redistribution, which changed a lot the whole supply chain of these islands and created a more integrated solution. The other company chose to hover the drone over the area that they were delivering the medical supplies, and this was mainly, they chose this different, so government of Vanuatu was very open for them to create what would be the standard operating procedure to do this. We asked the companies to keep the vaccines between 2 degrees and 8 degrees Celsius and having this kind of compartments where they can store the vaccines safely. And so we opened for them what would be the operating procedure. And Wingcopter, this second company, hovered the drone at that moment and then use a cable to download the box with the medicines and then fly back to the distribution center. So in this kind of methods of delivery, there was only the possibility of doing one-way deliveries, which was very efficient, and also in terms of training, it was less costly because you would only need nurses to clear out a specific area, but at the same time has a trade-off in terms of community engagement. So the project allowed the delivery of different commodities, envelopes, paperwork, syringes, antibiotics, oxytocin, and especially in the two-way, we found out that it allowed for a whole redesign of the supply chain. Some of the results from this 9-week period, somewhere around 1,000 children were immunized that otherwise probably wouldn't get immunized. The project allowed also to create on-demand services. So nurses arrive at a certain location, let's say, for example, a school, and they asked for the specific number of vaccines that they needed. The drone came and they got the vaccines, and then they put the slips and all the receipts back to the distribution center to note which vaccines were specifically used. And so drones showed, and the technology showed that it was technically feasible to use them. They flew over 70 kilometers on a daily basis from one island to the other, more than 150 flights that were beyond the visual line of sight of the operators were performed. Everything was automated. There were some hiccups, as in any implementation, that are around some incidents that were there were fully researched, which were the reasons, and incorporated then again into the project programming, so that we can learn from them. But just to finish, I would say that the lessons for UNICEF is, in general, in this kind of delivering systems, having a landing system is somewhat preferable if you want to really redesign your health supply chain and being able to redistribute from one point to the other, and not just only receive inputs from the distribution center. By doing so, it's not only about drones, but you have also to redesign your entire supply chain. And probably one of the biggest lessons was like around sustainability, and like to do this at the scale, you need to fly also a lot and build up the demand of your supply chain so you can keep drones in the air and reach that tipping point in which each kilometer by air more or less averages the same cost of a kilometer by a motorcycle, for example. And for doing that, for achieving sustainability, building local capacity and skills is critical. And this is why I'm jumping to this initiative from UNICEF that started in January in Malawi to actually create those skills with youth to be able to operate drones, to get a certification to fly them, but also to be able to do some drones by themselves. So in this picture, you can see the first cohort of students from the African Drone and Data Academy that will be graduating this month, and they will have the ability to build different kind of drones. They built 3 different models of drones that can cover distances of over 20 kilometers, and also being able to use these drones to build their own businesses around the delivery of medical supplies, food, etc., whatever is relevant for their communities. So I just want to end up with this, that the applications are open in April 2020. Sorry, the next application period is in April 2020, and it's open to any African students who have a bachelor's degree or significant STEM experience who want to get into this very exciting world of drones and development. Thank you.